Welcome back to Disturbed Reality. Venezuela, once one of the wealthiest countries in Latin America, has faced profound political and economic upheaval since the rise of Hugo Chavez in 1999. The turmoil, rooted in deep-seated structural issues, has intensified under the leadership of Nicolás Maduro, leading to widespread human suffering and a complex geopolitical crisis. Hugo Chavez, a former military officer who attempted a coup in 1992, emerged as a charismatic leader promising radical change. Elected as president in 1998, Chavez initiated the Bolivarian Revolution, named after Simón Bolívar, the South American independence hero. Chavez's policies aimed to redistribute wealth, reduce poverty, and assert national sovereignty over Venezuela's vast oil resources. Chavez's government implemented sweeping economic reforms, including the nationalization of key industries such as oil, telecommunications, and electricity. The state-owned oil company, Petróleos de Venezuela, became the cornerstone of Chavez's economic strategy, funding extensive social programs known as missions that targeted healthcare, education, and housing. Shortly after his election, in 1999, a new constitution was adopted, which significantly expanded presidential powers and allowed for indefinite re-election. The Chavez administration became increasingly centralized, with the president exerting control over the judiciary, the military, and the media. Despite criticism of authoritarianism, Chavez maintained substantial popular support, especially among the poor and working class, due to his social programs and charismatic leadership. Chavez's foreign policy, characterized by the anti-imperialist rhetoric and alliances with countries such as Cuba, Russia, and Iran, strained relations with the United States. His opposition to US influence in Latin America and his close ties with leftist leaders in the region created significant geopolitical tensions. Following the death of Hugo Chavez in 2013, Nicolás Maduro, his chosen successor, won a narrow and contested election. Maduro inherited an economy heavily reliant on oil exports, and already showing signs of strain due to falling oil prices and structural inefficiencies. The economic situation deteriorated rapidly under Maduro, with hyperinflation, severe shortages of basic goods, and a collapse of public services becoming widespread. The dire economic circumstances in Venezuela were only compounded further due to trade sanctions imposed by the USA and other Western countries. Maduro's government has been accused of widespread human rights abuses, including arbitrary detentions, torture, and extrajudicial killings. International human rights organizations have documented numerous instances of repression against political opponents, activists, as well as ordinary citizens. The dire economic conditions and the authoritarian leadership has prompted millions of Venezuelans to flee the country, creating a significant refugee crisis in the region. Neighbouring countries such as Colombia, Brazil, and Peru have struggled to accommodate the influx of migrants, leading to a humanitarian challenge with widespread regional implications. The country's political landscape and uncertainty has also allowed criminal gangs to flourish in the country, which in turn has only served in preserving the already high rates of violence in Venezuela. Various groups are involved in the nation's illicit drug trade, but arguably, no one more so than the actual powers that be. The Cartel of the Suns, Cartel de los Soles, is a term used to describe an alleged drug trafficking organization within the Venezuelan military, particularly involving high-ranking officials. The name, Cartel of the Suns, originated from the insignias that generals in the Venezuelan National Guard wear. The cartel is believed to be deeply involved in the production, transport, and distribution of illegal drugs, primarily cocaine, within and beyond Venezuela's borders. The Cartel of the Suns is thought to have emerged in the early 2000s as Venezuela's political landscape became more volatile and its institutions increasingly more corrupt. The organisation reportedly involves various branches of the Venezuelan military and security forces, including the National Guard, the Army, and elements of the intelligence services. Venezuela's strategic location makes it an ideal transshipment point for cocaine produced in Colombia, destined for markets in North America, Europe, and even West Africa. The cartel allegedly facilitates movement of cocaine through Venezuela's ports, airports, and land borders. In addition to drug trafficking, the Cartel of the Suns is believed to engage in extensive money laundering operations to conceal the proceeds of their illegal activities. This involves using a complex networks of businesses and financial institutions, both within Venezuela and internationally. The cartel's operations are reportedly sustained through widespread corruption and bribery within the Venezuelan government and military. High-ranking officials are accused of receiving payments in exchange for facilitating or turning a blind eye to drug trafficking activities. Several high-ranking Venezuelan officials have been implicated in the Cartel of the Suns, although concrete evidence and official charges may vary. Notable figures alleged to be involved include Diosdado Cabello, the former president of the National Assembly and a prominent leader of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela. Cabello has been repeatedly accused by various sources of having ties to drug trafficking operations and criminal gangs. The Minister of Interior and former head of the National Guard, Nestor Revelo, has also faced accusations from international authorities of involvement in drug trafficking. Another accused would be Hugo Carvajal, the former head of Venezuela's military intelligence. Carvajal has been sanctioned and indicted by the United States for alleged involvement in drug trafficking activities. The United States has taken a leading role in targeting the Cartel of the Suns. Various Venezuelan officials have been sanctioned and several have been indicted on charges of drug trafficking and related crimes. The US Treasury Department has designated individuals and entities linked to the cartel under its narcotics trafficking sanctions program. Ultimately, the Cartel of the Suns represents a significant and troubling aspect of the broader crisis in Venezuela. The alleged involvement of high-ranking military officials in drug trafficking operations highlights the deep-rooted corruption and criminality within the Venezuelan state apparatus. Naturally, when the state is involved in such criminality, it, in essence, gives the green light for smaller, organised gang to operate with a certain level of impunity, as some of these gangs do indeed have ties to military officials as well as members of the civil service. Drug trafficking is the trade of choice in Venezuela, with the country being dubbed by some as a narco-state. But much like with Mexican cartels and Brazilian drug factions, criminal groups in Venezuela have been diversifying their criminal portfolios. Naturally, crimes such as extortion, kidnap and robbery, as well as murder for hire, are common financial strategies for such gangs, but several have entered the raw materials industry, illegally of course. Illegal gold mining has skyrocketed in Venezuela in recent years, with various gangs participating in the illegal activity. This has resulted in gangs warring over gold-rich areas, and the violence has been incredibly brutal. Illegal gold mining operations are rife with human rights violations. These include forced labour, human trafficking, violence against minors, and severe exploitation of indigenous populations. The miners are often working in extremely hazardous conditions, facing threats from armed gangs and corrupt officials. Sadly, reports of children being used to work the illegal gold mines are becoming more and more frequent. Also, various massacres have been linked to the illegal gold mining industry. One of the most notorious tragedies linked to illegal gold mining in Venezuela is the Turmoil massacre. In March of 2016, at least 28 miners were reportedly killed in the town of Turmoil, located in Bolivar State. The massacre occurred when a gang of armed men attacked a group of miners to seize control of a lucrative gold mine. The bodies of the victims were dismembered and buried in a mass grave, highlighting the extreme violence associated with illegal mining operations. This incident drew national and international attention, underscoring the lawlessness and brutality in Venezuela's mining regions. In November of 2019, another massacre took place in the indigenous village of Icabaru, also in Bolivar State. Armed men stormed the village and killed at least 8 people, including indigenous leaders. This attack was linked to disputes over control of gold mining operations in the area. The massacre in Icabaru not only illustrated the lethal competition for gold, but also highlighted the vulnerability of indigenous communities to violence and displacement due to illegal mining activities. Bolivar State is one of the most dangerous in Venezuela, and the gold regions have seen an unprecedented level of violence in recent years. One gang largely responsible for such violence would be Las Claritas Sindicato. Las Claritas Sindicato is one of the oldest and most established mining gangs in the state of Bolivar. Its leaders are believed to be Juan Gabriel Rivas Núñez, aka Juancho, and Johan Jose Romero, aka Johan Patricia. The group are extremely influential in Bolivar State. In the areas of Las Claritas and Kilometro 88, it regulates social and economic life, and leverages this position into vast criminal earnings by controlling and taxing every step in the gold supply chain, from extraction to sale. They also have been known to extort local business owners, as well as engage in kidnap and murder for hire, though drug trafficking is not their forte. In its early days, the group rose up thanks to alleged protection from the administration of former Governor Francisco Rangel Gomez, according to testimonies by security force whistleblowers. One of the reasons as to why Las Claritas Sindicato have maintained great influence for several years is due to their non-aggression against other criminal factions. Instead of going to war, they have agreed upon peace deals with rivals, allowing them to control their area of influence with relative ease. Las Claritas Sindicato is heavily dependent on one criminal resource in a relatively small territory, but while this limits the group's capacity to expand beyond its current form, it has shown so far little ambition to move beyond the lucrative local gold trade and its core territories. While major security forces deployments in late 2022 suggest that the Maduro government is launching renewed efforts to bring the gold trade under state control, Las Claritas Sindicato was once again notably not a target, leading many to believe that the group are actually controlled by the military. As long as this remains the case, then the group is likely to continue as the most powerful criminal group in Bolivar State. Unsurprisingly, Las Claritas Sindicato are no strangers to committing extreme violence, and they were implicated in the 2 previous massacres mentioned in Bolivar State. They have been known to kidnap and torture rivals and those who go against them, displaying depraved techniques such as beheadings, mutilation, and dismemberment. In January of 2018, a gruesome video went viral in Venezuela and Latin America, with a clip being shared around social media, many of the time attached with falsehoods and fake news. Many claimed the clip to be from other regions of the world, including the Middle East and India, all to push certain propaganda to suit whatever agenda that they were trying to push. This is a common theme with such videos from South America due to the lack of coverage in which they garner. Regardless, the clip stems from Venezuela, and the gruesome murder is largely believed to have been filmed and perpetrated by Las Claritas Sindicato. The clip also highlights the issue of forced labour and people trafficking in Venezuela, as many who work in the illegal mines tend to be either illegal migrants, very often from Guyana, or indigenous people whose rights at the best of time aren't recognised. But nevertheless, what happens in the actual video? Before we delve into the gruesome details, it's worth stressing that the victim in the video, according to my research, is still yet to be identified, and more than likely never will. What is known is that the man was from Guyana and arrived in Venezuela to work the illegal mines. Why the man was murdered is up to debate, but from my research, claims of stealing or being in cahoots with people that he shouldn't have been could possibly be why the murder occurred. In one article, it states that the man's murder was ordered by a farmer named Tilson, I won't mention his full name as he has not been convicted nor investigated. Allegedly, he ordered the killing to send a message to workers who stole from him. This seems to be the most likely reason for the killing, as in the video, a man can be heard talking, essentially accusing the man of being a thief. In another article, it states that the man may have been murdered simply for demanding payment for his labour, which incensed members of Las Claritas Sindicato who he was working for. Initially, the victim was incorrectly identified as a man named Romashindo, though this turned out to be false. The man who they thought was the victim notified his family that he was okay and was not the man in the video. Since then, the trail appears to have gone cold. I cannot find any confirmed identification of who the victim actually was. The clip itself is 2 minutes and 16 seconds long and is incredibly hard to watch. In the first 15 or 16 seconds, the person filming, who may be the farmer previously mentioned, roughly states, "This is a message to all of those who want to rob from my farm. I am the greatest in Venezuela." All while the statement is being read, the camera is fixated on the victim's face. The victim is laying on the floor on his back, with his hands tied. He has also been gagged with cloth. The victim looks young, late teens or early 20s I'd estimate. As he lays there, waiting for his fate, the fear in his eyes speaks 1,000 words. After the brief statement has been read out, the brutality then ensues. A man then enters shot, who has his face obscured by a makeshift cloth mask, and he is carrying what appears to be some kind of fillet knife. He bends down and hovers over the victim before slicing off his right ear. You audibly hear the blade slice through cartilage. The victim makes no noise, though you see him close his eyes and he scrunches up his face as he absorbs the pain. After the ear has been cut off, the victim opens his eyes and you see them begin to water and his pupils appear to get bigger. The knife-wielding gang member then slices off the victim's left ear. Once again, he closes his eyes and his facial expressions contort due to the pain. Once his ears have been cut off, the victim lets out pain-induced sighs, and it appears as if he is on the verge of tears. The young man continues to sigh, with the pitch of the sighs getting higher and higher. The killer then appears to hand the knife over to the person filming, and in a POV type of shot, you see the person filming wave the knife around while accusing the victim of being a thief, while stating, "This is what will happen to anyone who steals from me." The knife is covered in blood. The victim tries to plead his case. His voice is high-pitched as he speaks through the gag, and his voice breaks and cracks several times. You audibly hear the fear in his voice. Once the statement has been read, the victim is instructed to lay down despite his pleas, and he does so. He appears to realise his fate has been sealed. He doesn't fight it. A man then enters shot, the same person who severed his ears, though this time he is carrying a machete that appears to be brand new. The light from the mobile device filming shines and reflects off the blade. The victim lays down as instructed, and the killer takes the machete and slams the blade down onto the victim's throat, hitting the Adam's apple area. For a second, the victim barely moves, but then blood erupts like a volcano, shooting up into the air, which is followed by the sounds of gurgling blood and a rasping exhale. The victim instinctively sits up and blood is pouring profusely. In a matter of seconds, his entire chest is covered red. The hitman then wrestles with the victim, whose sudden fight for life appears to have surprised the killer, though he eventually forces the victim back onto the ground. This time, however, he is laying on his stomach. The noises by this time sound like squeals and are utterly horrific. The killer then takes the machete and slams the blade twice onto the back of the victim's neck. You hear the blade thud as it strikes flesh. The noises at this point become even more horrific, to the point to where I can barely describe the sounds. The best way I can describe it is that the noises are weirdly similar to that of a duck quacking, but more drawn out, as well as more guttural and extremely violent sounding. The killer with the machete then takes the blade and strikes the victim several more times on the back of the neck. At times he misses and hits the bottom of the skull, and you hear the machete chime as this happens. You hear the machete clank against what I think was the spine, and at this point, the victim appears to pass away or pass out. The amount of blood in this video is insane, and it's only added to the fact that the footage is pretty clear, unlike many videos that come from the region. The video ends as the victim lays in a pool of his own blood, half decapitated and hacked up. It's a horrific scene, and the video provides some of the worst sounds I've heard when it comes to beheading type videos. The fear in the victim's eyes before his execution is also hard to look at. It feels like the fear portrayed in his eyes burn into your soul while watching the video. It's a hard watch. I'd like to thank a subscriber, ZVKaz, for the information provided to cover this case. But anyway, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it, if you can enjoy this sort of content. As always guys, thank you for the support, it's much appreciated. Just to let you guys know, a subscriber has set up a Facebook page, recently hit 100 followers, so if you would like to follow that page, the link will be in the pinned comments. Shout out to Kelly for becoming the 100th member. Also, links to my Twitch, etc. will be in the pinned comment. A link to my Twitter for anybody who wants to get in touch and recommend a case. Feel free to DM me. But anyway, as always, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.